What's good, everybody? It's King here. Hope you guys are having a great day. Welcome to another form of versus battle. As you guys tell by the title, I'm here doing another form of not only interesting versus battle, but as well doing iconic form of versus battle concept that I've done before. As you guys know, if you've been here for a good minute, which if you're new here, please leave a like, share, subscribe, comment will really help me out. But I have iconically done videos involving Elden Ring. I've talked about Elden Ring numerous times on this channel, and I would say for across the board on YouTube, I'm probably one of the most knowledgeable people on Elden Ring. I'm not gonna act like I'm the full expert, but I like to say I know my shit. With that being said, I have done videos where I pit Elden Ring characters versus Dragon Ball characters, and I talked a little bit mildly about anime, and I iconically put characters of interesting concept, but reasonably from like face value possibly would body the other. In today's video, I'm here to explain the possible uniqueness and coolness of the battle regardless of whoever you think wins. As you guys can see by the title, I'm pitting Cell, the ultimate life form, the ultimate abomination, plague of death, and most importantly, perfect being, versus Starscourge Radahn, famed Red Lion of Caelid, greatest demigod of heights and galore, mightiest demigod of the shattering, and without a doubt the single-handed GOAT of Elden Ring. With that being said, I have pit people again from Elden Ring against DBZ, in this sense Godfrey versus DBZ Broly, Mesmer versus Frieza, and so on. With that being said, in all reasonable credit though, I now have a battle that I've not only thought about way in the past, like back in 2022, but at the same time kind of thought, let me not do it because I just didn't really feel like it. But now, with obviously getting more into different involvement, not only power scaling as well, being the type of creative person to go ahead and do something like this, the most random, I'm here to go ahead and bring you why Starscourge Radahn versus Cell is not close. For Starscourge Radahn, I talked about it multiple times in my channel, so with this, I'm going to be doing a very much, unique but very, set in stone case of not only talking about him as, again, I have talked about this man multiple times. Like I said, this is my first rodeo, and as well, I've talked about Elden Ring numerous times on this channel. If you want to see not only an in-depth, more concrete, set in stone, repping of Radahn and power and even history, please check out my numerous cases of not only Elden Ring videos with him, but as well, I have an entire video entirely involving this man Radahn, where I go into a deep dive look at not only his history, correspondence of everything about him. I have another video entirely breaking down the history, lore, and battle of Radahn versus Malenia. This thing is going to be tied to the case of my iconic talk of Malenia, who scales to Radahn. Everything in contribution to her power scaling should just go about, not only, scaling off of him, but you just crack off from him and give as well a great deal of emphasis and depthness of, the character of Radahn as well. So again, for a secondary intro, I want to make that clear for why the video style that you guys are going to see now is the way it is. Again, if you wish to go and peek more about Radahn, go ahead and peek that. And again, if you're new here, please leave a like, share, subscribe, comment, whatever the case may be, and enjoy.
Malenia is the daughter of Queen Marika and Radahn, two people who are mixed to believe were not the same at birth, or at first. They were formed to each other by the greater will to create something of greater purpose, or have them both be tied to the same fate, as Queen Marika was trying to differ from the Golden Order, while someone like Radahn was trying to be the ultimate warrior of it. Through them being together, they had different cases of varying children, with the first being the case of Mesmer, which is arguably mixed interpretation to be either an asexual child of Queen Marika, or be Queen Marika and Mesmer's first child in between a multi-case of different time, which is very weird, but it's Elden Ring lore crazy just to keep going on forward. Queen Marika and Radagon's iconic case of children are the two twin prodigies, Malenia and Miquella. Them both being twins, they're supposed to be at the same age, but Malenia would actually grow more formally, but would be cursed with the Scarlet Rot, a curse from the outer god of a whole different type of proportions of strength, and being next to frenzied flame, one of night and grand scale devastation to the lands between on a core baseness, the most terrifying. As the Scarlet Rot is a disease that is manifestation to the mind and does a bunch of different devastation to one's soul, it seems like in the mix. Not in a conceptual sense, but pretty much is the ultimate plague like no other. Imagine Black Plague and COVID, and this was shown in the means of Caelid, where it done an atomic level amount of devastation, nuked the plane, and eradicated everything off the census, making it literally look like Florida. That right there would alone be a country level feat with the mass and case of obviously proportional size of all of Caelid, and just the pure fact that Malenia was doing this changed the entire case of atmosphere and the land and a bunch of different aspects of it that would make it at low end a country level thing to reasonably multi-country depending how you perceive what a full blossom of a goddess of rock could do. But that's just a level alone right there. This also has big damage to her psychologically and physically, as the Scarlet Rot has cursed her so much as 8 away out of normal proportion of body parts, taking away her right arm, taking away parts of her leg, and obviously making her blind. Now, how she's able to fight blind is because a random blue wandering swordsman took pity on her and taught her the ways of the sword, and allows her to have so much resilience, even against all possible adversity against her, to be able to fight with a blade that's literally one along with her. She was granted prosthetics, aka granted augmentation, by her little twin brother to allow her to be able to fight so skillfully and proficiently, even with her being, at always disadvantaged. With that being said, she would get an augmented right arm that is attached with a blade that is one with her body, and showcase her being one of the most skilled, efficient swordswomen in the entire lands between, being undefeated, being a fierce, efficient, never defeating general that is able to body anybody in her way across the lands between, as she she was the main dominating figure in the case of the Shattering, going across all the lands between, all the way from the Hallow Tree at the bottom of the mountaintops of the Giants, and laying siege and smackdown to anyone that got in her way, making a bitch of Godric, which is not too hard to do, and multiple times being stated by not just people in verse, by Sir Gideon, who is a very big knowledge keeper and renowned dude in knowledge, right? Stalking us, knowing the capabilities of these different demigods, and even taking aspects of their capabilities, stated to be the ultimate warrior, a demigoddess like no other, running from multiple people, and no other demigod, arguably, except for the mixed bag most renowned people like Mesmer, Radahn, Morgoth, and most importantly Godwyn the Golden, could be on the same extremes and fame of her. But the pure fact of her skill being so much of these high revered stands, that makes her be someone to not be trifled with. Eventually, she would come to blows with her older half-brother, Starscourge Radahn, conqueror of the stars, king of the battlefield's lion, the red-famed boy himself, the goat. They were lock horns in combat and was said by Ronnie multiple times stated to be the mightiest demigods of the Shattering, with Radahn being older, stronger, having way more capabilities like no other. This would then again make her be one of the most strongest demigods, to being the strongest by a statement said, where if Malenia was not tired, battered, and bruised from the countless fighting across the Shattering and the battle in Caelid, that she could have either had the same fate as enemies needing to blossom and take out Radahn, or it could have been a more decisive victor. As they stalemated / drawed, as again, Radahn and Malenia fighting in the Shattering had a lot of going on, but Radahn was more of a physical stand, aka being more physically ready, while someone like Malenia was more down now, and when taking up her prosthetic arm was not on the same means, and this is said by a co-director to producer of Elden Ring, right, as known by Miyazaki, has all the proof in the pudding and order from the counting revel. So, as I explained in my shameless plug, Radahn versus Malenia, who was stronger in a live video, I explained that Malenia countless times has multiple revere statements and scaling and assumption of matter for being way more stronger than what is shown in game, and at the same time being, obviously, stronger than Radahn for multiple reasons, especially with the fact that, simply put, Shadi is just a very built different swordswoman, and no one in the verse should argue be able to scale to this skill, and at the same time, fame, except for the people I mentioned before, which even then, Malenia has all the criteria to build the best, especially when we consider her ascension into godhood. But yeah, simply put, Malenia is definitely built for fights like no other, and is just an ultimate fighter, to say the least, right? But it isn't just in her blossoming the scaling to, Radahn, who, because of conquering the stars and controlling stars in such a vast regard, would make her going from low end, like multi-dwarf of Thor level like capabilities, or consistently and reasonably because of how much vastly his stars are, in the case of him, capturing and defeating, besting, shattering, crushing, star controlling, nebula-making aliens in Astal and the star-destroying beast, would make Radahn reasonably a multi-solar system to universal level character at a bare minimum. She's able to harm him, he's able to do these things to these people, and using the stars or 9 or whatever with his gravity magic, which has been shown in the fight, reasonably should make that be the case. Ty will also just the pure fact that obviously she is able to, scale to these things by greatest regard, with harming and obviously giving him stasis 9 brain cancer, that would give her reasonable scale there. But what really gets both of them to reasonably universal in a great deal of people is the fact that Ronnie has a statement about being able to create a universal pocket dimension in the second phase of Warnala, with a statement given by Hidetoki Miyazaki himself, where he states that simply put, he wanted a universe to come alive within her second phase, and with that being said, be shown through magic. There's also the fact that Glintstone magic comes from different important parts of the universe explained in greater detail. There's how with the fact that, all these people having a split part from Queen Medica and Radahn, who are all, grace of power, the greater will, especially because the Elden Ring is life in the lands between, not just the tarnish, but mixed bag perception to also be a way to give greater preservation and at the same time balance to people, which is more of a, cosmology factor that doesn't necessarily tie into full way of actual power stand, but you can give reasonable criteria to simply say that yes, Malenia, like others, should be scanned from a multi-solar system to universal scale. When it comes down to speed, it should be obvious that with Radahn being able to scale to stars and other things along those lines, that simply put, Malenia should be able to be scaling on the good deal mid-relativistic to multiple times faster than light on a great deal of reason, as being able to scale and combat people that's able to make nebulas crack out the stars randomly at this speed, being able to scale to stars, compete with that, shown in the case of Constant Radahn's boss fight, where he's literally beaming off light, moving at the speed of light consistently. That should reasonably make her, like them and everyone else, be reasonably massively faster than light. To add a little bit more to Starscourge Radahn, simply put, he's the famed general of Caelid, the red famed lion, king of the battlefield's lion, one of not the most skilled person at a time within the Shattering, next to a few others when it comes down to skills and accolades. I'm just going to bring a few statements to kind of really spread that home. Great warriors.
Who fought Malenia and her lot to a standstill in the Caelid wilds. General Radahn, the famed Red Lion and Scourge of the Stars, is a ferocious warrior. He fought Malenia and her lot to a standstill in the Caelid wilds to Limgrave's east. And now Caelid has been engulfed by the Scarlet Rot. Even approaching the region is no mean feat. I've heard survivors of Radahn's army are still in the wilds, staving off the rot with fire. And if it's true, I suspect Radahn is still there as well, in Caelid. Though, I doubt he much resembles his former self anymore.
But I had that time Malenia discussion / recording where we just explained the fact of the matter that regardless of Radahn is not overarchingly stronger than Malenia, he scales to her regardless if she's injured, wounded, tired, and battered. It doesn't matter, especially in his prime. He has gravity magic, electric telekinesis, can unite himself to become a meteor, can control stars, utilize stars, can create a lot of crazy, ridiculous array of hacks, uses light, fly, very creative with his stuff, has a bow and arrow. That allows him to use a mixed form of different, bow, arrows, spikes, and pillars. He can chain connect very cleanly with his Starscourge blades, like Torn B. He has actual, different blades that are called Starscourge blades, where he uses gravity magic prolifically because of that. But yeah, and that's pretty much it.
Cell, the ultimate life form, created by Dr. Gero to be not only the vengeance of the Red Ribbon Army, but to exterminate the DBZ warriors, aka the Z fighters, and as well be an ultimate menace, the booty snatcher, big lip bitch, the perfect life form, the ultimate menace. When it comes down to Cell, I'm going to be talking about all his different forms and capabilities and power scaling. And obviously for Cell, I'm going to be using Dragon Ball Z. And of course, just using general, Dragon Ball in general for the credit of what he's doing. Not Dragon Ball Super, not anything of out-of-pocket form, right? Obviously in the case for that. But as well, just in the matter for, Cell's capabilities and all that, it's going to take a minute to kind of break down. When it comes down to Cell's capabilities with his first form, aka his more bugful form, Cell would easily scale over Piccolo, would scale over Android 17 and reasonably 18, and these people, in the case of the two iconic, twin androids, are able to outscale all the mainline Z fighters. All their scaling is very present and very much, evident. And I've talked about different cases of not only Dragon Ball Z power scaling and multiple instances of lore. So the fact that Cell scales over the androids, that scale over Frieza, being, in general, or Mecha, and multiple different people, even Goku, would reasonably give the reasoning for, obviously, him to be scaling, in this case, easily at planetary, easily to dwarf star level, and even if you want to stretch just by the assertion of scaling over these multiple different people, in just this first form, could have in high wing scale by the greater case statements of Cell, and beforehand with Frieza, to universal heights. But just being bare minimum planet to multiple times dwarf star level is pretty consistent from all the different upscaling that he would do by proxy. With that being said, his second form, gained by absorbing Android 17, would be by the means of being just pretty much a hypothetical 2 to good times, upgrade from that, as again, he would overscale not only 17 and 18 in base, but would also from this be able to outscale Android 16, and with that being said, be able to outdo multiple people. And Android 16 was very much confidently made as being the older big brother of Android 17 and 18 to be able to do what he does and take out multiple different odds. With that being said, because of that, because of the fact that again he's stronger than Android at 16, who again was able to decently hold his own against someone like Cell in his first form and pretty much put the beats on him. Android 16 being a person, like I said, who's able to stand against the odds and is very capable, right? Android 16 is the GOAT. This man Cell will be scaling to high good stuff. He also took multiple blasts from Tien, which alleged for hours, right? Tien Shan is very powerful at this time and put his entire life force into his stuff, and is one of the most iconic scenes in DB, especially because of a bridge. Shout out to a bridge for that. That was peak. But besides that, right? This man Cell, again, would be one build different accolade or foe, to where in the second form, he's easily able to, destroy islands, bang out multiple people, take some different hits and blows from Vegeta, even if he is way stronger than him. And with this form, again, would be way more stronger because of that. Now, when he absorbs Android 18 and becomes perfect, he outscales Vegeta in ways like never seen. He's able to regenerate from not only taking a Earth obliterating most likely blast in the final flash by the own word and decree of Trunks, and able to take on odds not just from him, but multiple times over. As you have to remember that Cell, in perfect form, hosted the Cell games and banged out with a way more stronger Goku, who easily at this time was built different in not only power and accolade, and they threw one of the greatest fades in anime. From that scaling, that would easily just be a lot more consistency there, and again, Cell is just multiple times, 1,000 times way more stronger than where he was before, and so that's pretty consistent. At this point in time, when Gohan would emerge into becoming Super Saiyan 2, one of the most peakiest transformations, he, Cell, would get demolished there and get bested. And then in the mix of him, getting literally punched so hard, he literally threw up Android 18. This man has showed in his, second and perfect form that he could blow himself up and become a big blob bomb, right? That would again destroy everything in the midst, right? Not only the case of obviously, Earth, but possibly in hypothetical and greater, emphasis of the dangers to come, would destroy everything that you could think of in the case of, not just Earth, but as well possibly the whole solar system. So if you really think that's actually concrete, again, there's argument easy from there that, that's pretty consistent solar system scaling. But when he would actually, come back to life, after literally coming from little one chunk of Cell, he would turn into his super perfect Cell form, where easily from there, he has so many statements about not only him being able to easily destroy the planet with his super Omega Kamehameha, but as well be able to destroy the solar system and everything in possibly the universe from that. And the universe is infinite, so I would say easily you could argue Super Perfect Cell to be beyond solar system level to reasonably be, universal at the highest grand scope in, but again, solar system to multi-solar system is pretty consistent right off rip from that. You could even, say to a higher weight, maybe even galaxy, depending on how you perceive it, right? But when it comes down to speed, obviously when it gets to the Z fighters and scaling over multiple different creative people, he would reasonably scale multiple times being faster than light to multiple thousands, 100,000s, millions, you know what I'm saying, hypothetical scope, which is pretty consistent in comparison, you know what I'm saying, with, again, multiple different people in a greater crossroads, right? And reasonably, you could say that, someone like Starscourge Radahn, has that same scale and emphasis, being more or less, in this more case of hypothetical thousands, 100,000s, not as much millions, but again, pretty consistent and even on that front. Now, for Cell, when it comes down to, all his hacks and capabilities, because of literally being the ultimate life form that Kevin 11's around every Z fighter and what they can bring to the table, and a general, again, pit to pit, bang for bang, general accolade of a fight in multiple different array. Again, this man Cell would reasonably be scaling with the case of not only multiple different, not only earth-destroying, very climatic and destructive capabilities, reasonably a very high-end person, had a special beam cannon, destructive disc of not only Krillin but as well Frieza. He has multiple different capabilities of all the different Z fighters, can mimic these abilities, use a Kamehameha, can teleport, has solar flare, has so much shit. He can absorb people by his own tail. He's able to sprout Cell Juniors, which I'm not going to even get into discussion of that, because then he'd be having just a mini person. He can clone himself as well. And yeah, Cell's a very not only dynamic but pretty much effortlessly a tremendous powerhouse. When it comes down to the battle at hand, there's a lot of things to take into consideration. Number one, going off of just form to form, right? I easily think that Starscourge Radahn consistently would body the imperfect form of Cell at first, right? Because not only does Cell not even have any capability to even comprehend what Starscourge Radahn is going to be bringing to the table, but not even just because of his size, but every accolade that this man Starscourge Radahn can bring to the table. I believe that he's most of the time going to consistently body this man's Cell in almost every aspect. There's no way that in perfect form Cell is even being able to stand to someone like Radahn in this case. With that being said, for a second form, I think you give him a little bit of trouble, mainly in hypothetical of hacks being just more deliberately shown, right? Being more avid on, even though, don't get twisted, I believe that he would best him too, regardless how you see it. Perfect form Cell, I definitely think, has the argument for giving him the most dangerous fight, with the fact of the matter is that he scales for multiple people that should be consistent to these same layers of stuff, regardless how you see it, right? Especially because, again, he could take a reasonable great deal of the same means of what someone like Starscourge Radahn could bring out. But I could also see, because of being more consistently at a higher end grandstand, that reasonably Starscourge Radahn would be able to defeat Cell. It would be very hard to put him down, but I see him being more than maybe, I feel like, hard pressed to even do it, but a lot more easy accessible to be able to actually take him out consistently in the same means, right? Especially because Starscourge Radahn, even though not having as much wicked hacks and or the crazy healing factor of someone like this man Cell, to where he can regenerate more crazy than any person you could think of, right? I do think that he would be all around able to not only deter Cell, put him down, and especially Radahn's unyielding, build different colossal force, I think would definitely be able to just batter in multi-different clean cruise and body the hell out of this man in multiple forms, to the point where not only someone like Cell would be overrun by all this different stuff. Don't get it twisted. Cell has a lot of different things that can combat this, but when this man Starscourge Radahn is popping out with all this gravity magic, all these different onslaught of different stars, celestial bodies, and is just very much a built different swordsman and accolade person, and a skill to people just as much high-end skill, I would say it'd be very much a hard test for Radahn, but still very much more easy. Now, in not being able to kill him, he would come back and most likely become someone like Perfect Super Cell, or I would say Super Perfect Cell, where this dude would go about not only being 2 to 5 times stronger than everything I just said about Perfect Cell, but Cell in his final form, or again, Perfect Super Cell or Super Perfect Cell, would be way beyond the comprehension of Radahn, and easily, regardless if you just think he's at low in regard, should in the capability of reasonably statement to statement, evidence for evidence, consistency for consistency, be reasonably inclined to be way beyond the comprehension of a nigga like Radahn in any case of the way. And again, the only argument you really have to deter this is the fact that obviously someone like Radahn has a lot more of a concrete statement and very much consistency to be universal. Why Cell Mixed Bag doesn't. But if we try to go about equalizing a lot of different testament to this, right, even again with the argument for them being already very much concrete enough to say it's equal in speed and very much equal in the AP department, I would still most of the time put my money on someone like Cell in all hypothetical. Again, only in his super perfect form. As you have to understand, Cell is already crazy with power, but the fact that he scales to way more higher record and, you know, echelon of different scaling and shit along those lines when it comes down to like someone like Super Saiyan 2 Gohan, that wasn't for a bunch of mixed context, being very much, you know, boosted in adrenaline and entire morale when it came down to his father Goku, giving him the spirit like no other, and the iconic father-son Kamehameha. I would very much give every reasonable decree of someone like Cell being able to scale way more higher in grand scope boast than anything Radahn has to show, just because of the statements, capabilities, techniques, accolades, and everything that you could think of. I think he would just dance around this man, Starscourge Radahn, all night long, be able to decimate him in multi different forms of different hacks, be able to entirely bruise, you know, through a lot of what he's doing, cruise for a lot of his stuff, entirely atomize Leonard, which will probably bring out more of the demon in this man Radahn. But I believe that the iconic Starscourge famed Red Lion of Caelid, Conqueror of the Stars, King of the Battlefield Lion, is entirely, demonstrably outplayed in almost every way you could think of. Again, the only way I could really see him winning is hypothetically him bringing an entire fucking onslaught, like off rip, as soon as this man Cell comes back, hypothetically, and he, whatever he did to have Cell be out here put down and Cell not popping off into his super perfect form and boosting to new heights like never seen before, and being the most not only colossal, devastating, terrifying force to the Z fighters at this point, and arguably in general besides someone like Boo. I would say that he would come back reasonably because of the Zenkai boost, his wicked, uncanny healing factor with 2 to 5 times way more greater capability, and you have to do new levels of Dawson, Mr. Fantastic, fucking Master Oogway, heal of like, you know, pushing boundaries like never seen before, stretching out your arms to be out here moving like that one god, you know, mural and painting, to say that this man Cell is going to be able to not only, you know what I'm saying, come back from all this shit and have any concrete argument to say that he would entirely outboast, outdo, out-hacks, out-versatility someone like Radahn, when Radahn has not only laid out his basically entire kit against him. There's also just an argument that someone like Radahn is just not able to compete with somebody as Cell's argument, with somebody of the most low stand argument for, again, versatility. Even then, being very skilled, was able to take him out and pretty much ease. And if this man Cell threatened to destroy the entire planet and face him like Starscourge Radahn head on, and I wouldn't be surprised if Cell could bait Starscourge Radahn into this because of his pride, would entirely just atomize and nuke him and Caelid off the sensors and entirely the planet. There's also just things that Cell can do that someone like Radahn could not take on. Like even if you want to stretch his gravity magic or anything against him, again, in his super perfect form, right? Cell can manipulate gravity to some extent with telekinesis from Frieza. Very crazy hacks, can match multi-different echelon and shit like never seen before. This man Cell can obviously breathe in space. You could reasonably say Starscourge Radahn can do the same thing. But there's an argument that we're destroying the planet from these blows being way more higher than just planet level. Again, you'd have to do new levels of Dawson, Ms. Fantastic, Plastic Man, levels of stretching beyond compare and hail that says Super Perfect Cell is not able to defeat Radahn after all of this echelon and boast of stuff. So in conclusion, finally, I believe that Cell most of the time, again, with all reasonable record, would defeat Radahn. But again, it is a lot more close than you possibly might think. I only say that it's not close when you actually look at the greater case of stuff, because again, no matter how close it actually is, it's reasonable for this man Cell to best him in a lot of different reasons. And you know, you can maybe search calculate with the case of, you know, title at hand, but I hope I made it clear more why all around an equal, all around hypothetical credit setting, that it's just not close at all, no matter how you see it. But yeah, that is it for this video. I hope you guys have enjoyed. If you're new here, leave a like, share, subscribe, comment, where the case may be. I love y'all. I'm gonna see you guys in the next one. Peace out, mommy. Love y'all.